Forgotten Warrior. Captain Eleanor Reeves stood on the observation deck of the UES Defiant, her calloused fingers tracing the cold metal railing as she gazed at the stars. The massive battleship, once the pride of Earth's defense fleet, now drifted toward its new assignment, patrol duty in the Epsilon sector, a remote corner of human space where nothing ever happened. "Captain, we're receiving transmission from Fleet Command." Lieutenant Vasquez called from her station, the only recently upgraded console on the bridge. "Put it through," Elima replied, straightening her weathered uniform jacket. She knew what was coming. Admiral Chen's hologram appeared, his expression a mix of sympathy and resignation. "Eleanor, I've done everything I could. The Defense Council has made their final decision. The Defiant is being permanently reassigned to Epsilon Station. A glorified retirement," Eleanor said bitterly. 70 years of service, 3 interstellar conflicts, and humanity's first encounter with the Araxian Collective, all to be forgotten in some backwater sector. The Council believes maintaining ships like the Defiant is inefficient. The new quantum-class vessels can perform the same functions with a quarter of the crew and triple the firepower. Eleanor's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Until some clever alien finds a way to disable their neural interfaces or hack their AI navigation systems." "You know I agree with you," Chen said quietly. "But technology marches on. The Defense Council wants standardization, quantum shields, AI targeting systems, neural interfaces. The Defiant is an anomaly. Mechanical controls, manual targeting, analog backups. They call it redundant. I call it reliable," Eleanor countered. "When the Protean hegemony deployed their pulse weapons during the Battle of Deneb, what happened to those fancy quantum shields? What good were those neural interfaces when the Araxians released their synaptic scramblers?" Chen sighed. "I know, Eleanor. That's why I fought to keep the Defiant in service. The best I could do was ensure you weren't decommissioned entirely." Eleanor gazed around her bridge, at the crew who chose to remain with the old ship rather than transfer to newer vessels. She saw Chief Engineer Rodrigo working beneath his console, muttering affectionately to the ship's systems as he maintained them by hand rather than through automated diagnostics. Lieutenant Commander Harper at Tactical, who could calculate firing solutions in her head because she understood the physics, not just the interface. Navigator Patel, whose fingers danced across actual physical controls that gave real feedback. "Fine," she finally said. "Send us the coordinates. But Chen, when something happens that those new ships can't handle, remember we're out here." The hologram nodded once before disappearing. "You heard the Admiral," Eleanor said to her bridge crew. "We're being sent to guard empty space. Anyone who wants to transfer to a more advanced post, now's your chance." Nobody moved. Harper actually smiled. "With respect, Captain, I prefer firing guns I can feel." When was the last time one of those AI targeting systems hit anything on the first try? Rodrigo's voice came over the intercom from engineering. "Captain, if they want to decommission this ship, they'll have to pry me out of the engine room. These systems still have stories to tell." Eleanor felt the familiar swell of pride in her crew. The Defiant wasn't just a ship to them. It was home. The journey to Epsilon Station took 8 days, longer than it would have in a modern vessel, but Eleanor used the time wisely. The crew ran drills, practiced manual overrides, and rehearsed emergency procedures that newer ships' crews deemed unnecessary. Epsilon Station came into view on the 9th day, a small utilitarian outpost orbiting a mineral-rich moon. The station commander, a young officer named Grayson, didn't bother hiding his disappointment when the Defiant docked. "We were hoping for one of the new quantum-class ships," he admitted during Eleanor's first briefing. "There's not much for you to do out here, but regulations require a military presence. We'll try not to get in your way," Eleanor replied dryly. Weeks passed in routine patrols around the Epsilon system. Eleanor kept her crew sharp with constant drills and simulations. Some wondered why she insisted on maintaining battle readiness, in a sector where the most exciting event was the bi-monthly supply run. The answer came 3 months into their assignment. "Captain, to the bridge." Harper's voice cut through the silence of Eleanor's quarters. Something in her tone made Eleanor move before she was fully awake. "Report," she demanded, entering the bridge to find her crew already at their stations. "Long-range sensors picked up something unusual," Harper explained, pointing to the display. "A distortion at the edge of the system. At first we thought it was a sensor malfunction, but it's not." Eleanor finished, studying the readings. "It's a ship. No, ships. Many of them, using some kind of cloaking technology. They're not in any fleet database," Vasquez added. "The energy signatures are unlike anything I've ever seen." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "How did you detect them if they're cloaked?" Harper smiled slightly. "They're hiding from modern sensor arrays, quantum scanners, positronic detection grids. Our old magnetometric sensors were seeing right through it." Eleanor turned to communications. "Alert Epsilon Station and send a priority message to Fleet Command. Unknown vessels, possibly hostile, approaching Epsilon system." The response from Fleet Headquarters was swift. 3 of the newest quantum-class vessels, the Intrepid, the Dauntless, and the Sovereign, were dispatched immediately. The Defiant was ordered to stand down and withdraw to the station. Eleanor acknowledged the orders and then promptly adjusted her ship's position to provide supporting fire if needed. The Defiant might be old, but she wasn't running from a fight. The quantum ships arrived with impressive speed, their sleek hulls gleaming against the blackness of space. They moved with precision only possible through AI navigation, their formations mathematically perfect. "The unknown vessels have dropped their cloaking," Vasquez reported. They're beautiful." On the display, the alien ships emerged from the darkness of space. Their designs were unlike anything in human records, seamless, almost organic, with surfaces that rippled like liquid metal. They moved with impossible grace, their hulls pulsing with strange energies. "Open a channel to the Intrepid," Eleanor ordered. Captain Wei of the Intrepid appeared on screen, his expression confident. "Captain Reeves, we have the situation under control. Return to Epsilon Station as ordered." "Captain Wei, our sensors indicate these vessels are employing technologies we haven't encountered before. I recommend caution." "Thank you for your concern," Wei interrupted with poorly disguised condescension. "The quantum fleet can handle this. These vessels, while unusual, don't appear to be heavily armed. Our analyses suggest they're merely an exploratory force." Before Eleanor could respond, the alien ships suddenly accelerated, their formation shifting in ways that seemed to defy physics. Strange energy began building along their hulls. "Captain Wei there." The communication cut off as the alien vessels released their weapons. Beams of twisted energy lanced out, bypassing the quantum shields of the human ships as if they weren't there. The Dauntless was hit first, its advanced defenses useless. The ship's systems went dark almost instantly, leaving it drifting helplessly. The Intrepid and Sovereign returned fire, their advanced weapon systems unleashing torrents of energy, all of which seemed to bend around the alien vessels without impact. Eleanor watched in horror as the Sovereign executed a complex evasive maneuver, a mathematically perfect course calculated by its AI pilot. The alien vessels seemed to anticipate the move exactly, their weapons converging on the ship's predicted position. The Sovereign's quantum shields flared brilliantly before collapsing. "They know our technology," Eleanor whispered in realization. "They know exactly how our ships will respond because they studied them." She turned to her crew, determination hardening her features. "Prepare for combat. All systems on manual control. No automation, no predictive algorithms. I want this ship running on human instinct alone." As the Intrepid struggled against the alien onslaught, the Defiant moved forward, its ancient engines roaring to life. "They've studied our new ships," Eleanor said, gripping the command rail. "Let's show them something old." Proving ground. The Defiant moved deliberately into the fray, its aged hull plates groaning under the acceleration. On modern vessels, inertial dampeners would have made such transitions smooth and silent. But Eleanor preferred feeling her ship respond, the vibration beneath her feet telling her more than any readout could. "The Intrepid is taking heavy damage," Harper reported from Tactical. "Their quantum shields are failing." Eleanor watched as the pride of Earth's fleet, a vessel that cost more than a dozen ships like the Defiant, fought helplessly against the alien attackers. Captain Wei had switched to manual control, but his crew, trained to rely on AI assistance, struggled with the transition. "They're trying to get a targeting lock on us," Vasquez called out, monitoring communications. "Their sensors keep sliding off our hull." "They're confused." Eleanor allowed herself a grim smile. "They're looking for electronic signatures, neural interfaces, quantum field generators. We're running too basic for their advanced targeting systems." The Intrepid executed another desperate maneuver, this one clearly human-guided rather than eye-calculated. For a moment, it seemed to work. The ship narrowly avoided a barrage of alien fire, but the reprieve was brief. The alien vessels regrouped, adapted, and struck again. The Intrepid's engines flared one final time before going dark. 3 Quantum-class ships, the most advanced vessels humans have ever built, disabled in minutes, Eleanor said quietly. "Harper, power up the main batteries." "Sir." Harper looked up in surprise. "The main batteries haven't been fired in actual combat for decades. That's exactly why we're using them. They won't expect what they haven't studied." The Defiant's main armament was considered laughably obsolete by modern standards, railguns that fired physical projectiles rather than energy weapons. No quantum harmonics, no phase modulation, just solid metal accelerated to tremendous speeds. "Target the lead vessel," Eleanor ordered. "Fire when ready." Harper's hands moved across her console with practiced efficiency. The Defiant shuddered as its main guns unleashed their first volley. Without sophisticated targeting computers, the shots weren't precisely aimed. They simply filled a cone of space where the alien vessel was likely to be. The effect was immediate and shocking. The alien ship, its defenses calibrated to counter energy weapons, took 3 direct hits from the solid projectiles. Its beautiful hull crumpled inward, atmosphere venting from the breaches. "They weren't expecting that." Rodrigo's voice came over the comm from engineering, jubilant. "Their shields are designed for energy dissipation." The remaining alien vessels reacted quickly, shifting their formation to focus on this unexpected threat. Strange energy beams lanced toward the Defiant. But unlike the quantum ships, the old battleship's hull was solid metal, built to absorb damage rather than deflect it. "Damage to decks 4 through 7, reported Lieutenant Chen from Damage Control. "Hull breaches contained. Structural integrity at 82%. "Evasive maneuvers," Eleanor ordered. "Pattern Delta 6. Navigator Paddle smiled as his hands danced across the manual controls. There was no AI plotting the perfect course, just human intuition, making the Defiant's movements unpredictable in a way no algorithm could achieve. The alien vessels struggled to adjust. Their weapons, so devastatingly effective against the newest human technology, scored only glancing hits against the Defiant's erratic movements. "They're scanning us," Vasquez reported, "trying to figure out what we are." Eleanor's grim smile widened. "Let them wonder." Harper, ready another volley. Wide dispersal. The Defiant's gun spoke again, sending another spray of hypervelocity projectiles toward the alien formation. 2 more vessels took significant damage, their flowing movements becoming erratic as they vented atmosphere and debris. "They're retreating," Harper announced with surprise as the alien ships began to withdraw, pulling back toward the edge of the system. "Not retreating," Eleanor corrected, studying their movement. "Regrouping. They're going to come back with a better strategy." She turned to communications. "Vasquez, get me Epsilon Station." Commander Grayson's face appeared on screen, his earlier disdain replaced with open shock. "Captain Reeves, We've been monitoring the situation. The quantum ships, disabled, possibly destroyed. Eleanor confirmed grimly. Begin evacuation procedures for the station. We've only bought some time. Evacuation. But, Commander, we just witnessed the complete defeat of 3 of our most advanced warships. Whatever these aliens are, they've studied our technology and found its weaknesses. The evacuation ships are old, short-range transporters with minimal electronics. They might have a chance to escape. After a moment, Grayson nodded. I'll begin immediately. Eleanor turned to her bridge crew. We need to prepare. They'll be back, and they'll have adapted. Captain, Rodrigo's voice came over the intercom again, sounding strangely hesitant. I need you in engineering. There's something you should see. Eleanor glanced at Harper. You have the bridge. Keep us at battle stations. The journey to engineering took longer than usual. Emergency bulkheads had sealed several corridors due to battle damage. When Eleanor finally arrived, she found Rodrigo standing before an unmarked door, hidden behind a panel of ordinary-looking gauges. What am I looking at, Chief? She asked. Rodrigo's face was unusually serious. I found this while running diagnostics on the weapon systems. It was hidden in the original schematics, classified under a project name I've never heard of. Operation Sunbreak. He entered a code into an ancient-looking keypad. The door opened with a hiss of hydraulics. Inside was a chamber filled with machinery unlike anything else on the ship. Older somehow, more basic, yet Eleanor could feel the dormant power humming through the walls. What is this? She asked, instinctively lowering her voice. Rodrigo ran his hand along a massive cylindrical structure in the center of the room. The reason the Defiant was never decommissioned, despite all the pressure to scrap her. This isn't just an old battleship, Captain. She's a weapons platform. He pointed to the cylinder. This is a gravitational compression cannon, the only one ever built. Eleanor's eyes widened. Modern ships used energy weapons, plasma, lasers, particle beams. But gravity? Why wasn't this in any of the ship's records? Because it was too dangerous, Rodrigo explained. Not just to the enemy, but to us. The scientists who developed it found a way to create a point of artificial gravity so dense it could tear apart anything nearby, even planets. But the power requirements were massive. The targeting had to be perfect. One mistake, he shrugged. They abandoned the program, switched to energy weapons instead. Safer, more efficient. But they left this one, Eleanor said, understanding dawning. Hidden away on an old ship nobody would look too closely at, ready if we ever needed it. Rodrigo nodded. The technology was deemed too dangerous for widespread deployment, but too valuable to destroy. So they buried it in plain sight, on a ship everyone assumed was obsolete. Can you get it working? Already started, Rodrigo said with a grim smile. But Captain, we'll only get one shot. The power cells are ancient, and charging them will take everything we've got. And the targeting system. He hesitated. It's completely mechanical. No electronics at all. We'll have to aim it manually. How long to charge? 20 minutes. Maybe less if I redline the engines. Eleanor nodded. Do it. And get Harper down here. If we're going to aim this thing, I want my best gunner on it. Back on the bridge, Eleanor found her crew working efficiently to repair what systems they could. The alien vessels remained at the edge of sensor range, their numbers growing as more ships arrived. They're gathering a fleet, Pottle observed, looking up from navigation. 17 vessels now, including something much larger than the others. Their flagship, Eleanor said, studying the readings. The new arrival dwarfed its companions, its liquid metal hull pulsing with energy. They're not taking any chances this time. Captain, Vasquez called out. We're being hailed. Eleanor straightened her uniform. Put it through. A figure appeared on the main screen, tall, elegant, with silver skin that rippled like mercury. Its features were almost human, yet unmistakably alien. Primitive vessel, The being spoke in perfect, unaccented English. "You have impressed us with your unconventional tactics. Such ingenuity deserves recognition before we continue our conquest. Surrender now, and we will study your vessel's unique properties before we destroy it." "You've studied our technology well," Eleanor replied, keeping her voice steady. "But you've overlooked something important about humans." "And what might that be?" the alien commander asked, sounding genuinely curious. "We're our most dangerous when cornered." She cut the transmission. "Patel, plot us a direct course for their flagship. All power to engines. Vasquez, signal Epsilon Station. Tell them to launch all evacuation ships now." As the Defiant's engines roared to life, pushing the battleship toward the waiting alien armada, Eleanor whispered to herself, "Let's see if they've studied our history as well as our technology." Last stand. The Defiant accelerated toward the alien fleet, its ancient engines straining beyond their design specifications. On the bridge, warning indicators flashed across multiple consoles, but no one paid them any mind. Every crew member understood what was at stake. "Epsilon Station reports all evacuation ships away," Vasquez announced, "heading for the jump point at maximum speed." "Good," Eleanor replied, her gaze fixed on the approaching alien vessels. "Let's make sure they have time to escape." In engineering, Chief Engineer Rodrigo worked frantically to channel power to the gravitational compression cannon. Harper stood beside him, studying the weapon's mechanical targeting system with growing concern. "This was designed to hit stationary targets," she said, running her fingers over the antiquated controls. "A ship moving at combat speed. I don't know if I can compensate manually." "You'll have to," Rodrigo replied, not looking up from his work. "There's no targeting computer, no calculator, just human skill and intuition." Back on the bridge, Eleanor watched as the alien fleet adjusted its formation. They were clearly confused by the Defiant's direct approach, having expected more evasive tactics. "They think we're suicidal," Patel observed. "We might be," Eleanor replied with a grim smile. "But we're taking them with us." "How long until weapon range?" 4 minutes at current speed," Patel answered. Eleanor nodded, then opened a shipwide channel. "All hands, this is the captain. By now you've all guessed that we're on a one-way mission. The aliens have studied and countered our best technology, but they've overlooked our greatest strength, human determination. Evacuation pods are ready for anyone who wishes to leave. No judgment, no record. You've all served with honor." She paused, waiting to see if anyone would take the offer. The ship remained silent, each crew member standing firm at their station. "Very well," Eleanor continued, a lump forming in her throat. "It has been the greatest privilege of my life to serve with you. Whatever happens in the next few minutes, know that you've upheld the finest traditions of humanity. We are the Defiant, and we will live up to our name." In engineering, the gravitational cannon's power cells hummed with increasing intensity. Rodrigo wiped sweat from his brow as he pushed the ship's reactors beyond their safety limits. "Power at 60% and climbing," he reported over the comm. "Harper's working on the targeting solution." The alien flagship hailed them again. This time, the silver-skinned commander's expression showed something close to bewilderment. "Your actions defy logical analysis," it stated. "Your vessel cannot withstand our combined firepower. Why do you continue this futile approach?" Eleanor stood tall, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. "Because that's what humans do. We defy analysis. We defy prediction. We defy the odds." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You studied our technology, but not our nature. That was your mistake." The alien commander's liquid metal features rippled with what might have been concern. "Your species' irrationality is exactly what you should fear," Eleanor finished, cutting the transmission. "Patel, adjust course directly for their flagship. All remaining power to forward shields." The Defiant plunged toward the heart of the alien formation, weathering increasingly intense fire. Hull breaches multiplied across the ship's infrastructure, emergency bulkheads slamming closed as atmosphere vented into space. Multiple hits on decks 3 through 12, reported Lieutenant Chen, his voice steady despite the chaos. Structural integrity failing in sections 29 through 36. On the main view screen, the alien flagship grew larger, its liquid metal surface rippling with building energy. The smaller vessels moved to intercept, their weapons lashing out with increasing desperation. "They're getting nervous," Eleanor observed. "They don't understand what we're doing, and that scares them." 80% power on the gravitic cannon. Rodrigo's strained voice came over the comm. "Harper says she needs us within 5,000 kilometers for accurate targeting." "Understood." Eleanor turned to Patel. "Keep us on course, no matter what. Every other system can fail except propulsion." The alien vessels intensified their assault, concentrating their fire on the Defiant's engines. The old battleship shuddered under the onslaught, but Rodrigo's engineering team worked miracles, rerouting power and sealing breaches faster than they formed. 2 minutes to optimal firing range, Patel announced, his hand steady on the controls despite the bridge shaking around him. Eleanor opened a secure channel to engineering. "Rodrigo, Harper, status." "Power at 92%, Rodrigo replied, his voice nearly drowned out by the sound of failing systems. "We're losing containment in sections 4 and 5. Rerouting through backup conduits." "I've almost got the targeting solution," Harper added, strain evident in her voice. "But Captain, even at optimal range, we'll be caught in the gravitational effect. The weapon's radius." "I understand," Eleanor said quietly. "Just make sure it hits." The alien flagship loomed large on the view screen now, its escort vessels forming a defensive screen. Strange energy rippled across its hull, building toward what was clearly a devastating weapon discharge. "They're preparing to fire their main weapon," Vasquez warned. 1 minute to optimal range, Patel reported. Eleanor opened a final shipwide channel. "All hands, this is it. For Earth, for humanity, for all those who will come after us, hold fast." In engineering, Harper made final adjustments to the targeting mechanism, her hand steady despite knowing what was coming. Rodrigo monitored the power levels, pushing the ancient systems beyond anything they were designed to handle. "Power at 98%, he reported. "Harper, target locked," she confirmed. "Manual solution computed. Ready on your command." On the bridge, Eleanor watched as the alien flagship's weapon reached full charge, its hull glowing with unnatural light. 30 seconds to optimal range, Patel announced. The alien commander appeared on screen one last time, its mercury features set in what appeared to be regret. "Your resistance is admirable, the Fupel," it stated. "Your primitive vessel cannot." "Now," Eleanor shouted. In engineering, Harper pulled the manual firing lever. The gravitational compression cannon discharged with a sound like reality itself tearing apart. The Defiant bucked violently, systems overloading across the ship as the ancient weapon threw every last iota of power. A barely visible distortion shot from the Defiant's bow, crossing the space between the ships in an instant. When it struck the alien flagship, there was no explosion, no flash of light, just a sudden, catastrophic compression. The massive vessel collapsed inward, its beautiful hull folding in upon itself like paper in a closing fist. The effect didn't stop there. The gravitational singularity continued to grow, pulling in the surrounding alien vessels. They struggled against the immense force, their advanced drives glowing with effort, but one by one they were dragged into the growing distortion. On the Defiant, systems failed in cascading succession as the gravitational forces began to affect the battleship itself. "It's not stopping," Rodrigo's voice came over the comm, barely audible through the static. "The reaction is self-sustaining. We've created a..." The transmission cut off as the Defiant's communication system failed. Around them, space itself seemed to warp and bend as the gravitational singularity expanded. "All hands to escape pods," Eleanor ordered. "That's an order." Most of the crew moved to comply, though some remained steadfast at their stations. Eleanor made no effort to force them. Each understood the choice they were making. "It was an honor, Captain," Paddle said, his hand still on the navigation controls. "The honor was mine," Eleanor replied, gripping the command rail as the ship groaned around them. As the gravitational forces intensified, the Defiant began to break apart, hull plates tearing free as the ancient battleship was pulled inexorably toward the singularity. Eleanor remained on her bridge, watching through the viewscreen as the alien fleet disappeared into the darkness they had created. The last thing she saw before the viewscreen failed was the singularity beginning to collapse in upon itself, taking the remains of both fleets with it. A fitting end, she thought, for the ship they called outdated. 3 months later, Admiral Chen stood before the Defense Council, his expression solemn as he delivered his report. The gravitational event created by the UES Defiant's final action has been contained. The alien incursion has been halted, at least for now. Analysis of debris recovered from the edge of the affected zone confirms these were indeed advanced forces of a previously unknown species with technology significantly beyond our own. One of the counselors leaned forward. "And what have we learned from this encounter, Admiral?" Chen's gaze swept the room, meeting each counselor's eyes in turn. "We've learned that technology alone does not determine the outcome of battles. The Defiant succeeded where our most advanced vessels failed because of its crew. Their training, their adaptability, their human intuition." He placed a data pad on the council table. "I'm proposing a new classification of vessels. Preservation class. Ships that maintain certain outdated systems and manual control capabilities. Crews trained to operate without AI assistance when necessary." "That seems inefficient," another counselor remarked. Chen allowed himself a small smile. "Captain Reeves once told me, I don't call it redundant. I call it reliable." She was right. There's a place for our most advanced technology, but there must also be a place for human skill and ingenuity, for the things machines cannot replicate. As the council debated his proposal, Chen's gaze drifted to the viewport and the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, humanity's enemies were recovering, studying, adapting. But so were we. The lesson of the Defiant wouldn't be forgotten again. Sometimes, the old ways were the best ways.